Hey guys, 170 out here. Hope you are all well. Hope you've extricated yourself from the snow. It was literally coming up to my knees at its highest point. It's like living in Canada, or so I get told. For the observant of you, you'll notice I have a very special guest in the top right corner, left corner, left, right, in the top corner. This is Beck. She is a very good friend of mine. I've actually been thinking back. We've known each other close to, if not over 15 years.
Yep.
That was like, wow.
Yep. I actually yesterday was cleaning out my attic and I found some old photos, not of us, but like from the conventions that we used to go to together, and it brought back so many memories. It was wonderful.
It's one of the things I do miss. It's one of the things that my autism gets in the way of, but also, COVID just gets in the way of everything right now. Before
Yeah.
we before we jump into our light topic for the evening, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am 33, I'm a teacher. I am a massive sci-fi fan. I used to go to a lot of conventions, which unfortunately my job has kind of got in the way of, since I'm usually busy on the Friday and exhausted by the Saturday. But I've got a long history of absolutely loving sci-fi, fantasy, novels, TV, movies, games, everything I can get my hands on, really. And I've also dabbled in writing myself, which some of the people we're going to talk about today actually inspired me to start,
Oh,
unfortunately.
very cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
the fact that the conventions is how we met, I think, wasn't it? At
yeah,
crewing, which I guess is rather appropriate, for the want of a better word, for what I really want to talk about in this vlog today. And I really wanted you on for this because trying to get my head around everything and trying to work out how you react and what you're supposed to think and feel has been rough. But let's just have a very quick overview, just for those who have not been following entertainment news over the last couple of weeks. I think it was last week, Ray Fisher. I think he played Cyborg on in the Justice League movie. Tweeted slash posted an Instagram story about his experiences of Joss Whedon, and to say they were less than flattering would be putting it mildly. Abusive, very manipulative, generally disrespectful, and very sort of bordering on gross misconduct. Shortly thereafter, Charisma Carpenter, who played Cordelia in Buffy and Angel, the show that Joss Whedon created, tweeted out slash Instagram storied her support by basically saying, yeah, well, this is true. It doesn't surprise me because it happened to me, and went into quite a lengthy and pretty damning story of how Joss sort of treated everybody on set, and in particular how he treated her during her pregnancy, how very vindictive he got. Since then, several other Buffy cast members have basically come out and said, yeah, all this is true. This happened. We're all in this together. Including Sarah Michelle Gellar herself, which I actually at the moment for me is the most surprising one. I wasn't quite expecting her to come out and sort of. I mean, she has said that she doesn't want to go into it because she's trying to raise a baby and whatnot, which I completely get and understand. But the sheer fact that she has taken time to say, yeah, it was bad is quite something. All this was going on whilst Gina Carano was outing herself as a right-wing conspiracy nutjob, trying to compare being a Republican today to being a Jew in the Holocaust. That sort of seemed to be the final straw for Lucasfilm. She has a history of tweeting stuff about how racism isn't real and COVID is fake and you don't need to wear a mask. Lucasfilm basically issued a statement saying, yeah, she doesn't work for us. She doesn't have a contract, and we're not going to be giving her a contract now, which is hardly surprising, which we'll probably talk about later on. But when you effectively work for a high-profile company like Disney, what you put out in the public does reflect on them. And if they don't like what you put, every contract has a gross misconduct flipping clause. I think even mine has a gross misconduct clause. That if I tweet something that damages the company, they can fire me for it. And yeah, then obviously the big one that's been going a long while. I've actually been thinking about this, and I don't want to make light of it, but I can't think of someone who has sabotaged their own reputation so fast and to such an extent as J.K. Rowling, with her abhorrent views on transgender individuals, completely doubling down on it by basically writing a book on her views and dressing it up in fiction. And that's led to a lot of things within the gaming community, which I actually really do want to talk to you about as well, in light of upcoming Harry Potter games and who gets supported in that. Should we boycott and all that? Obviously, Hollywood is no stranger to abuse within allegations. Kevin Spacey and Bryan Singer are two that are coming to mind off the top of my head. Harvey Weinstein as well. I've talked a lot. Beck, that was depressing.
It is a depressing situation. I mean, what can we say? I have found it quite distressing to find that some of the people who kind of were my heroes in some ways as I was growing up have become people who have got such abhorrent views or who treat people in such awful ways. And I think I felt kind of guilty about it as well. Like, I was hardcore into the Buffy fandom and into the Harry Potter fandom. So I got so much merchandise. I went to conventions. I've been to everything I could think of. I've bought every DVD, every book, everything. So I kind of feel like I've been contributing to that in some way, which I know is a ridiculously over-the-top way to think, but you can't help but feel a bit guilty if you know that you've been supporting something that has been hurting people, essentially.
Yeah, that's the big thing. I'm looking around on Twitter, and I actually do want to give a quick little shout out to the Whedon-esque Twitter group. They've handled this really, really well. They've basically just sort of come out, and they're not defending him at all. They are sort of going, yeah, everyone's in a really shit state of mind at the moment. Hell yeah. And guilt is a word that's been coming up a lot, because as you said, you don't want to support these people, you don't want to support these views, and yet for the last, when did Buffy start? 1997?
I want to say 97. I may be wrong.
Yeah, 90. I've got 96, 97 in my head.
Yeah.
That it started, and so that's a long time to be. However, how do you want to dress it up? You've been supporting someone that's how he treats his cast and crew.
Yeah, exactly, for a long time. And you went from Buffy, Angel, Firefly as well. Firefly had a massive following.
Yeah.
And I think by the time Firefly came out, Joss had this quality of being a legend, kind of a hero, someone that should be idolized, I suppose. So
that's what got the Serenity movie made.
Yeah.
Was the sheer fact that people basically went, why have you cancelled Firefly? Joss is amazing. Firefly is amazing. We need something.
Yeah. It was like, we need this vision on screen, which there was a lot to like about the show, about Buffy as well. But now that you think back, it just feels like everything's tainted. Yeah,
and that's kind of the big sort of issue that I've got, because, I mean, and I think I'm probably going to echo a lot of people that Buffy was not just a massive influence. I mean, at times it felt like they'd literally just taken a day of my life and added some demons to it.
Yeah.
And it's like you're watching those characters deal with that situation, and you can't help but find it inspiring. You can't help but find, maybe that's the way I should approach this problem. Aside from grabbing a steak and stabbing a vampire with it, but maybe I should try that. And the fact that you see those characters get through those situations that you've gone through, you can't help be like, but I can do this.
Yeah, I felt exactly the same way. It was Buffy and Harry Potter had the biggest influence on me when I was younger, because obviously I was a teenager when that was coming out, when they were the most popular. And I was a very insecure teenager, and I was very shy, and I didn't really know how to handle situations. I didn't really know who I was supposed to be or what I was supposed to be like. I just knew that I wanted to be a good person, but I didn't know what being a good person meant.
Yeah.
So I'd watch Buffy or read Harry Potter, and you've got these people who are, I know they have flaws, but they always did the right thing whenever they could anyway. They would come together as a group. They'd support each other. They would defend people who needed to be defended.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it kind of feels, if we look at Harry Potter, for example, it feels like she's become Umbridge. I know that's a big thing to say, but That's what it feels like. And I feel like we have been raised by Joss and J.K. Rowling to be these people who will fight for the underdog and who will stand up for people and do what's right.
Mm.
And now it turns out that we need to do what's right against them, which is something that I never actually foresaw.
No, it's someone tweeted. I can't remember exactly what it was. They said it's absolutely ironic that a bunch of women are now rising up to fight the big bad, which I thought was quite interesting. Another feeling I've had, and I've been struggling to put my feelings into words when the whole Joss thing came out, and someone articulated it really well on Twitter. They said that they're feeling grief. And I thought, that's actually a really good word. I remember when, in a completely different when Monty Ohm died, he created Ruby. That's another show that's had a massive impact on me. And I remember when he died, and I just remembered feeling, I was grieving because this guy had created something that had just had so much impact on people. And I'm like, I'm having a similar feeling now. I've lost, something has died, or something very close to me has died.
Yeah. It's something that you've clung to and had close to you for a long time, and it's suddenly gone. And even if it's still technically there, it's gone because it doesn't mean the same thing anymore. Like, the whole meaning of it and the purpose of it is just completely changed. Like, I guess you could read Harry Potter again and try to forget who's written it. But when it comes to something like Buffy, now, if you watch that, you know that you are seeing that someone is basically suffering in front of you right there. Think about, like, The Shining, for example. We know that Shelley Duvall really suffered during that time, and it really affected her. So now, like, I can't watch that movie because I know that I'm literally watching this woman suffer.
Yeah.
And I guess thinking about Buffy now, or Justice League, or anything else that Joss has done, it feels the same way. I'm like, is that person who's on that screen right now, did they walk away and cry right after? And it takes you out of the fantasy.
Yeah. It kind of.
That's quite hard.
No, it all comes down to one of the big arguments on Twitter is, can you separate the art from the artist?
Yeah. See, I've got this thing that's really hypocritical. I love Tom Cruise movies, and I don't know why. Like,
because he's a good actor.
He is, but Buffy is a good show, and Harry Potter is a good book. But I just can't watch them anymore or read them anymore. But even though I know Tom Cruise is involved in Scientology, I can watch them and not feel guilty. And I don't know why. And I've been thinking about that a lot the last couple of weeks. Like, why can I watch Tom Cruise movies but not watch Buffy or Harry Potter?
Can I give a theory?
Go on. Yeah, go on.
I think it's because, I wish I want to word this right, for as crazy as Scientology is, he hasn't actually come out and said anything derogatory about anybody.
Yeah.
His beliefs are out there. You know, so I tried to look into Scientology once, my brain melted, and I went and had to lie down for 4 hours. So his beliefs are out there, but he's never been derogatory to people.
Yeah. And you've never heard anyone, say that there was some terrible experience on the set, for example. And he's not, as far as we know, he's not doing anything to hurt people now, which is my problem with J.K. Rowling, is people are really suffering because of her, like right now. But I don't know, I feel like we've all got a line somewhere, and I think for a lot of people that line is different.
Yeah.
Like for me, the line is somewhere between J.K. Rowling and Tom Cruise. I don't know exactly where, but it's somewhere between.
Yeah.
And I think for some people it could be either side, really.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point. I like that. Everyone does have a line. Everyone has their limit, and it's like, no, that you have now crossed that line, and it's.
But again, I think that line is partially defined by like what influenced you when you were younger, which for us is the series that they created.
Yeah. I think that there is a lot of people growing up, who have grown up with Buffy and Harry Potter, which are basically stories about people taking on the seemingly unstoppable and winning.
Yeah.
And
persevering,
fighting for others who, basically to coin the Avengers phrase, to fight the battles that that other people can't fight. They fight them,
Yeah.
and they win. And now it just sort of really come back to watching. But I haven't watched Buffy for a while, and I don't know whether I can, because I just like I'm gonna have all in this background because I love watching behind the scenes stuff. I've watched
Yeah.
every single behind the scenes documentary ever made about Buffy and Angel,
Yeah.
and even though that there was, and I apologize to everyone who's going to be watching this, we're going to be bouncing around all over the place, so I apologize. But when I was watching all of them, and I know there's been rumors in the past about Joss, and I know that his ex-wife has been very vocal about how he treated her, so there was alarm bells, but it was still a gut punch. Just reading that,
I think as well. I know this is not good, but I think I tried to avoid the rumors for a while because I didn't want it to be true. So I think I was kind of a little bit trying to avoid opening articles and trying to avoid reading things, which I know is terrible. But it's got to the point where you can't ignore it now. There's so much that's there.
Yeah, I think I was pretty much the same. It was like, I don't want this to be true. It's the whole, we all make mistakes thing. And I think I've fallen, I think I have fallen into that trap many, many times where I'm like, we all make mistakes. But these aren't mistakes.
No, this is the whole character flaw.
Yeah.
This is the entire person. I was thinking about that earlier, actually, that I think with the rise of social media, sometimes we are too keen to punish people for their mistakes when they are genuinely mistakes. If you look at Britney, like we as a society really punished Britney for doing things that really weren't that bad. That she didn't really hurt anyone, she didn't do anything that dangerous, but we really punished her for it. And yet we've been letting people like Joss get away with things that are so much worse.
Yeah.
And I think because it was hidden, I guess. But I think we probably should have looked harder. Because the signs have been there all along, and it's people like us that have been ignoring it, and we really shouldn't have been.
I think that's another thing regarding the guilt as well. Is that not only we've been supporting it, we have been ignoring it. Someone sort of pointed out to me, it's like, how did you not see this coming? And I didn't have an answer for him. Well, I did, but I didn't want to admit what that answer was. And the answer was, I didn't want to see it.
Yeah. It just felt like I felt the same way, and a friend said something to me recently like it was so obvious, and I was like, I know, but I didn't want it to be, so I was just hoping that if I didn't read it, then it wouldn't exist, and that I wouldn't have to feel guilty for it.
Yeah, we were hoping that the people that we're fans of are the better ones.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, it's worse when they portray themselves as being so virtuous. And I think is why Joss Whedon's ex-wife said something about that.
Yeah.
How he'd portray himself as being virtuous on purpose to cover up all these infidelities and the things that he'd done. And I think there's a difference between Joss and JK there, which is that Joss knows that he's not a good person. He knows he's done a lot wrong. JK Rowling thinks she is a good person, and she thinks she's doing the right thing. So she doesn't even think she needs to pretend to be virtuous. She thinks she is. And I feel like that's kind of worse. I don't know what. I don't think I can explain why I feel like that's worse, but it just is for me.
No, I don't know if Joss. I mean, Joss, I think, has made an admittance of something in the past. I should was going to go back, and then I thought, no, I'm going to depress myself enough already. Just going through the list of things on the overview that I need to read out, and then mind digging sort of further back. I guess there's a lot of things, but I want to come down to the main first question, which is, how do we as fans go from here? I mentioned that, and I also want to bring it round to this as well. I mentioned that Harry Potter game. There is a Harry Potter open world RPG in development at the moment. Can't freaking remember who's doing it. They are a well-regarded studio though. They've made some really good games, and there's the whole discussion at the moment about, should we buy the game? Because regardless of the fact that it's, J.K. Rowling hasn't written the story, she's not involved in the game development. It is an officially licensed Harry Potter game, which means it's come from J.K. Rowling's company.
Yeah. I don't think we should, because it's not just that she has said things that are bad, it's that she is actively currently hurting people, and she's using her platform and her wealth to do it. For example, she's got a charity with Baroness Nicholson. I don't know if you know Baroness Nicholson, but she is truly awful. She's transphobic, homophobic, racist. She is everything awful you could be, all wrapped up in one person. And JK's got this charity with her, which means that she's working with her. She is undoubtedly helping to fund various things. The people who follow her are regularly creating crowdfunding where they're raising money for to try and sue people into no longer supporting transgender people. And even if we don't know yet that J.K. Rowling has funded any of these things, knowing that she's connected to them, knowing that they are regularly requesting funding and that it's becoming, unfortunately, more morally acceptable in the UK to fund these things, I don't like giving her more money, not knowing where that money is going to go and what it's going to be used for.
There's always someone in the crossfire, and I'm playing devil's advocate, but this isn't the devs' fault. The devs,
no, I know.
the devs have come out and said, yeah, it's like the devs are actually genuinely worried about how this is all going to impact the game.
It will sell, but it won't sell what it would have done.
I'm hoping not. To be honest, I was hoping that was Cyberpunk and all the flipping crunch that went into that, but that seems to have set records. Though, admittedly, not all the good ones though, but that has sold exceedingly well.
I don't know what the contract is like for the devs. Like, I don't know what they need to make to break even or how that works for them. I think the best solution here is that they make enough to cover their costs, and that's it. I know it sucks for them not to profit, but some of that profit is going to go back to her.
Oh yeah, there was undoubtedly there was a. I don't know the specifics fairly, obviously, but I will be very surprised if it didn't involve a flat fee for the license and a percentage of either the actual gross revenue or the profits. One of those two. So she's already had her money because they would have already paid the flat fee, and however,
it's the percentage that I'm thinking of, really.
Yeah, because I think the highest grossing video game ever is Grand Theft Auto 5. And I think that it's made stupid money. I know it made about 800 million in 24 hours.
Yeah.
So even if the flipping contract is 2%, if it does anything like those figures, that's 8 million, 4 million, 8 million. It's millions. Yeah. It's a lot.
I would just like them to break even and then for everyone to forget that it exists. I know that is a waste of their time in terms of not generating a profit, but as long as they can continue to function and to move on and go on to their next game and just forget the whole thing happened.
Yeah, I guess that's going to be down to the attitude of the execs, though, isn't it? The guys that aren't actually going to be impacted by any of this anyway. Yeah. Have you read? Let me just sort of quickly come back to this. Have you read Harry Potter since?
No, I haven't read it. A couple of months ago, I watched the movies, and I felt weird when I was watching them. Even though I knew, like, no one had suffered in the making of that movie, as far as I know. It's not like watching Buffy.
Yeah.
I just felt weird watching it, knowing that she'd written it. I was going through my old bedroom at my mum's house, and I actually found the first editions of all the whole series. And I was thinking of selling them because I was like, I don't really want them on my shelf anymore. I don't even want them there. But then I was like, I don't really want to profit from selling Harry Potter myself. Like, I would feel guilty for profiting from selling this first edition set of Harry Potter, even though I could probably get a fortune for that.
Yeah. It's clear that Harry Potter's been tainted for you, though.
Yeah.
Is there any... Sorry, go on.
I think it's partly because I'm a writer as well. Like, I'm not like a published author, but I write every day. Like, literally every single day, I have to make sure I write something. It's like I think I've gone a year and a half making sure I've written every day.
Yeah.
And I started doing that from writing Buffy fanfic and Harry Potter fanfic, and it just really hurts knowing that this skill that I've developed came from this. And that's what I think that's part of what makes it really hard to look back at for me.
Yeah. Is there a way that, in terms of going back to the way the fandom can react about almost reclaiming it? Or is it the fact that it will always be J.K. Rowling's and there's just nothing that's going to change that?
I think over time people will start to rewatch and reread, but I think it'll be consuming new media, so games, new movies, rebuying books and things. People don't want money to go to her, and people will never, unless she comes out and she donates to mermaids and Stonewall and whatever, no one is ever going to want their money to go to her. And I think that's the problem, is that with Harry Potter, a big part of that was all the merchandise, all the books, the games, everything that you could, even I forgot what it's called, but the Pokemon Go style game, that one.
Oh yeah, I know which one you mean. Yeah.
All those little games that come with microtransactions as well. People don't even want to pay for that. So I think there would have to be a big disconnect between the story and all this money-making stuff, all the merchandise, the games and everything. They would just have to stop. Because the more they come out and the more people see the money going back to J.K. Rowling, the more annoyed people are getting. Whereas I think if she just stopped and all the extraneous stuff stopped, we could just go back and read it and just kind of at least feel like, we're not funding her by reading this book that we already own.
Yeah. Just thinking about where the Buffy reboot, where this leaves the Buffy reboot.
I don't know much about that. Is Joss involved? I'm assuming not.
No, this is the thing. This is what's just come to mind. It suddenly just popped into my head about after looking, because I know it was a reboot / sequel. They weren't remaking it, but they were basically taking the premise and setting it in a different time.
I think the concept of Buffy, even though it's tied to Joss, is also connected to so many other people. There were so many writers. Look at the comics as well. The novels came from the movie. There were so many different people involved in the creation of like Buffy the character and Buffy the story, that I think if you just took the story itself, you could run the story without connecting it to Joss. And I think the big problem with Buffy, the original series now, is looking at the series and knowing literally Joss is behind the camera.
Yeah.
Or maybe the next day Joss is behind the camera. Whereas if you've got this reboot coming on and it's written by somebody else, I think it wouldn't be connected as much to Joss as any Harry Potter stuff would be to JK.
But if Joss is involved, and I don't know how much of the rights Joss owns, I don't know whether he's in a similar situation to J.K. Rowling in terms of she owns all the rights to Harry Potter. Aren't we going to be in the same situation if Joss owns all the rights to Buffy?
Yeah, I think if Joss owns the rights to everything and it is essentially funding him, I think that is going to be a similar situation and that people won't want to connect with it. And especially with the reboot, people won't have that emotional connection to it that they do to Harry Potter, so they won't be as tempted to go and consume whatever that new media is. Whereas with Harry Potter, because it's one consistent, what's what I'm looking for? Like one consistent universe, it's all tied together. Then it's all, people find that a lot harder to deal with.
Yeah, I think that's probably a lot of the issue that the Fantastic Beasts movies have had. They've not done particularly great at the cinema, and again, you've got to ask how much is that down to people going, no, JK's involved in this, I'm not going to go near it. But it's still hard. It still must be hard to not, because it's like, it's a story set in a universe that you have been invested in for the last...
Yeah. That was the first Harry Potter thing that I didn't watch or buy or view or do anything with, the sequel. It was quite hard, like, knowing it was on the cinema, and I'd made this conscious choice not to go. And I was just like, wow, I've made the step. I've made such a huge step by choosing not to watch it.
Do you blame anybody who has chosen to go and watch it, though?
Do I blame anyone who what?
Who did choose to go and watch it? Do you...
No, I think I don't really blame anyone who's watching anything or reading anything, but I do have issues with people who support her as a person.
Yeah.
So I can understand why people would want to continue watching these movies or reading the books or playing the games. I just couldn't support somebody who was defending her on Twitter, for example, or who thought that she was right, or, you know, who wanted to join one of those crowdfunding attempts to sue people for her. Like, that's what I couldn't forgive.
Yeah. Let's come around to a difficult question. Does geek fandom have a problem in terms of not just how some of the other reactions that have been to this, but the sheer fact that a lot of people, creators within geek fandom, and there's something in me that thinking, is there something within geek fandom that draws these kind of people? I'm probably being extreme, but it's a question that's been on my mind a little bit, because obviously in gaming, as you well know, is not exactly known for its open-mindedness and whatnot.
Yeah.
And there's always been discussions about that. You know, what is it about gaming that attracts this kind of, these kind of people? And and then you got people like J.K. Rowling, creating within this space, Joss Whedon creating within this space, Gina Carano creating within this space, and you're like, does geek culture have a problem?
I think there's a massive divide. There's two very different kinds of people that are involved. You've got people who see it as a space where they can make people feel safe and where they can create things that give people hope. And I think that's something that geek fandom and geek culture does really well, is stories that can give people hope. And sometimes that's genuine, and sometimes that's just a ploy. So if you look at, like, for example, the reaction to Gina Carano, if you look at the fans of The Mandalorian, for example, and how they're responding to that, I don't know if it's 50-50, but about half are saying that what she said was deplorable, that she shouldn't be involved, that we should expect more of the people who are involved in these shows. And then about half who are, I just think of it as showing their true colours, which is defending her and saying that people should say what they want, and they come up with some quite crude things. And a lot of that, I find, is on the side of the male participants. I'm sorry.
No, it is. It's absolutely true.
I think geek fandom, I wouldn't say it's split down the middle, men and women, but I think if you were to look at how many men are on the side of inappropriate and how many are on the side of hope, I think it's a bit of a gender divide. Not completely. Obviously, there's people like you who are not at all like that, but I think when you're a woman and you're in this geek culture and in this environment, it can be a bit isolating, because you do see men in a very different way than, for example, like my boyfriend would. Like, I've watched him play games, and what he hears and what he sees is very different to what I hear and what I see when people know that I'm a woman. And that's actually, for example, when I'm gaming, one of the reasons I've quite often turned the mic off, because I don't want people to hear my voice and just start treating me like crap. So I think we need to root out a lot of bigotry, really, in our culture. And I think we are making progress towards that, but not enough.
Yeah.
That was big, sorry.
No, it's... Don't apologize. This is one of the whole reasons I wanted to record this and just not have a script. And just... Yeah, the story you told, unfortunately, I've heard too many times, and it pisses me off. It really does, because I'm like... I mean, I don't even have the mic on. But then I'm a sensitive soul.
I do feel like the good people that we've got are better than what you would find in other genres. So I think some of the best people out there are people who would describe themselves as geeks, because a lot of those people are more introverted or more sensitive or more creative, because they can create these fantasy worlds and imagine things that are so different. And I think as a result of that, there are a lot of people within our culture who are very, very inspiring people. It's just not high enough proportion yet that I'd be satisfied with.
Are we, and I'm putting me in the we bracket, are we being loud enough?
I don't think we are. And I've actually, like, on Twitter, I've become quite very, very loud and vocal.
I'm going to have to find you on Twitter now.
I'll send you my
Yes, send it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't want to put it on here in case my students.
No. Absolutely understandable. I will.
But yeah, I've become very loud about defending people against transphobia and trying to use my privilege, because I know as a woman I don't have every type of privilege, but I'm a white woman and I'm a cis woman, so that gives me some privilege, and I feel like if I can use that to try and defend people or to speak up for a culture that I want to see, then I should use that. And I think more people do need to do that. And I think that's something that those of us who are on what I would call the right side, we should be doing. We should be as loud as the people who are denigrating other people.
Yeah.
And it's tough as well, because those of us who feel the way that we do, I think we're more likely to be kind of more sensitive or more aware of what people are saying and how people are talking to us. And like, for example, I've discovered that when I've started defending people on Twitter from transphobia, I have been piled on. Like, I've had hundreds of people tweeting me and insulting me and calling me every name you can think of under the sun. And you've got to like have a really thick skin to be able to put yourself out there and accept that and do the right thing, even though you know you're going to get that kind of feedback.
Is it a case of that? I'm trying to think of just keep going to try and tip the scales the other way. But again, something in me says it shouldn't be like that, regardless of, you shouldn't have to have a thick skin. You shouldn't have to, it shouldn't be a part of online discourse.
No, I agree. It shouldn't be like that. But unfortunately it is. So I feel like if we don't do something, it will continue to stay like that. Like, we've seen, look at the rise of QAnon and things like that. So we've seen this dark side of the internet, this dark side of social media, the alt-right rising and becoming quite, don't want to say influential, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but having more and more of a presence and becoming more and more normalized.
Yeah.
And so what I've got into the habit of doing is, like, if I see like a Twitter thread that I think is quite objectionable, I know that if I reply to that person, I'm not going to change what that person thinks. But if I reply to that person, I might change the thought of someone who's just kind of browsing and just scrolling and just reading what's going on, because maybe they hadn't actually seen that opposite view, because it's kind of an echo chamber on Twitter. Like, if you look at certain people, their mentions and their replies are full of people who think the same as them. So I feel like I have an obligation as a teacher, I guess, because I look out for my kids if I can, to try just to give the other side, so that the undecided and those on the middle ground can see something different, and maybe that will influence some people.
Going forwards, it comes back to the question of, what can we do? As just going to keep it within the sort of the geek fandom community. I guess for me, I think it is, as you said, we've just got to be louder. We've just got to be louder, and we're gonna get beat up, so we've got to be louder, and we've got to be there for each other. We've got to back each other up. That's one thing I find doesn't happen a lot. So that might be just my experience. This just might be my perception of the circles and whatnot that I operate in. But I see people are quite happy to go after others. This is actually weird. I've seen that quite happy to go after the perpetrators, but they're not so quick to back up those who are getting piled on. It's odd. I don't know. I don't know why that is. I said it could just be my view. It could be that I'm missing something, but that's how it seems to me a lot of the time.
I completely agree with that. Like, I noticed that. Actually, I was watching South Park earlier, and there was an episode about this. I don't know if you watch South Park, but it was basically talking about how a master troll would attack person A, and then person B would attack the troll, and then person C, D, E would attack the person who attacked the troll, and it just kind of builds like that. And I think that's what we've got in our fandom, which is that people will attack the person who said something wrong, but they don't actually go and check that the person who's been insulted is okay. So what I think we need to try and do more is not necessarily attack, but correct. So just make sure that you are politely and putting out what the correction is in a way that's not going to inflame people too much without sugarcoating it. So like not insulting, not swearing, not yelling, just calmly stating whatever the fact is, and then replying to the person who's been hurt and just make sure they're okay, or support them, or compliment them, you know, say something nice, or go onto their Twitter account and interact with them in some way, so like we can make that community stronger, and then we will be there for each other.
I just want to sort of point out, it's not saying that it never happens, it just doesn't seem to happen all that often.
It's not enough.
No. And I think that if support, and I don't know what it is, and something's just come to mind, and this is the bit, and it all sort of comes back in the full loop. It's a massive problem. It's and the root causes are not within the internet. The root causes are within the fact they're so deep, I don't even know where they are. And yet, and as it comes back full circle, this quote from Angel, we don't fight to win, we fight because it's something worth fighting for. I think that's the quote. I think that's how it goes. Yeah. And it's like, again, maybe there is something in that within the solution, is taking the evil of someone, in this case Joss's abusive behavior, and taking what he created and using it to foster a more welcoming. I don't know. Yeah. I don't really know where I was going with that.
No, I know what you mean. It's hard to articulate it, but I know what you mean. I was thinking about that earlier as well. There was so much good that we've got from these shows and from these books. And even if it's tainted for us because of what people have done, that good is still there. Like, the things that it inspired us to feel are still there.
Yeah.
And they motivated us to become better people and to fight for other people, which, well, it did for me anyway. And I'm not going to suddenly stop that just because the inspiration had a corrupt influence behind it, because that influence was still right.
Yeah.
Even if the person making it was wrong in who they are as a person. So I think as long as we don't suddenly start thinking, oh, what's the point? Why am I bothering? As long as we keep going with those things that we've learned and developed, I think that is us using it in a positive way.
Yeah. Is that, do you think that's going to probably be the key to going forwards and healing? And I do think there's a lot of healing that needs to be done. And in no way, and again, I just want to point this out for people watching, in no way am I saying that the fans' views on this are what is the most important aspect of it, because obviously it isn't. What the cast went through, what everyone, the transgender community and those who are being targeted by people like Carano are going through, that is the most important thing. I just wanted to make this video, make that clear before anyone starts saying that fans aren't really that important. But do you think that that's the key to going forward and healing, is acknowledging both those two things as true? That Joss Whedon is an asshole, but he also created this amazing, inspiring piece of work.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you can't bring yourself to watch that piece of work again, which we might, I mean, I know we should have known this years ago, but for most of us, this is relatively fresh. So I think over time we probably will start watching these things again and reading them again, provided that he's not still out there doing this to people at the same time. But I do think there's a lot of good that we can do from this, and I think that's one of the best ways to heal, is to take the way we're feeling now and do something about it that's positive. Like, I don't know what that is related to Buffy yet. For JK, I do, but for Buffy, I don't know what the positive thing is yet, but we will find something. Whether it's just learning to stand up for people more, or I don't know. But I do feel like this is not going to be the last shock we're going to have related to things from that time period.
No.
I'm sure there's something else out there, or
I'll,
something else we're going to learn that we don't like.
uh, undoubtedly.
Just to leave you on a positive note.
It
But
is. I mean, I'm to be honest, I'm still waiting for some of the Firefly cast to come out. They've been pretty quiet.
did you hear?
Something must have gone on. If he's done this on virtually every flipping set he's been involved in, I doubt they got away.
I'm nervous because did you watch Castle?
I did.
Did you hear the stuff from Castle?
I heard the stuff that Nathan Fillion and
Stunner.
thank you just didn't like each other at all.
There were a lot of rumors, and again, I think I was doing that thing where I tried not to read them, but there were a lot of rumors of Nathan not being a good person and not treating people very well. And thinking back to that, and then the things we've heard about Joss makes me nervous about Firefly. But then you've been to the convention, a lot of the conventions that I have. That cast seem to genuinely love each other.
Yes,
like they seem to be so happy with their memories, and it's hard to imagine that being the same kind of environment.
No,
because I do think when I think back to the Buffy conventions, I did think they didn't all seem that happy. Whereas Firefly was just like a love bomb.
Yeah.
But it's the same director, the writer.
Yeah.
It's the same person.
Yeah. And he was on set for the pilot. He did the last episode. I think he did a couple of others. Yeah, you mentioned about that camaraderie. I was at a convention and flipping heck, his name was gone. Ron Glass.
Yeah.
Ron Glass was there. And I asked him if they were to ever make a movie of his life, who did he want to play him? And he said Nathan Fillion.
Wow. See, that gives me hope that Nathan is okay.
Yeah. But that Nathan might be okay, but and this is, it's always, again, it's there haven't been any accusations about what things taking place on the Firefly set, things taking on the Serenity set, but yet here we are questioning them now.
Well, how can you not? I mean, if you know that he did it to the women on Buffy and Angel. You know that he did it on Justice League. I don't know if you saw, but Gal Gadot came out and said that he'd been very inappropriate as well.
No, I haven't seen it. I didn't see that. No.
She basically, I think there were two different statements. I can't remember exactly what she said, but she'd said that she fully believed and supported Ray, and that she'd had issues with Joss herself, and that she had dealt with it at the time, so she didn't need to go and make a formal complaint because she'd sorted it out. And then later on, more recently, I think, she came out and said something about him wanting to sexualize her and being quite inappropriate on the set with some scene that she needed to film. James Masters as well said something. I don't know if you saw that one as well.
I've heard rumors that he's there's not rumors. Sorry, I saw on Twitter that somebody said that he had released or was releasing his own statement on the matter.
I saw a quote. I actually copied this down. I saw a quote earlier from James Masters, and I'm not sure when it's from, but I think it's recent, where it says, I remember he backed me up against a wall one day, and he was like, I don't care how popular you are, kid. You are dead. You hear me? Dead. That's James Masters saying that Joss had said that to him. So when you hear all of that, you can't avoid wondering what it was like on other sets.
Yeah. Did you see the statement by Tony Head? You see what Tony Head said about it?
No.
He was interviewed actually on Good Morning Britain, and they asked him about it. And I got to give him some credit to this, because he has honestly said, I didn't see any of it, but I'm not going to stand here and tell you that it didn't happen just because I didn't see any of it. Mm-hmm. And he says, I've literally, since the allegations have come out, I've spent all my time going back through all my memories going, how the hell did I miss this? What did I miss? Did I miss any signs? Were the crew trying to tell me something? Because I was basically the elder statesman.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. My Sarah actually raised something interesting, that I bet that if Josh tried something with Tony would have slapped him, because Tony, by that point, he was an experienced actor. He'd been on sets. He's probably seen a lot of nefarious stuff go on a set. Then he just wouldn't have accepted it. So It's interesting that he said he didn't see it, but I've got to give it credit. He didn't. He said, "I'm not going to say it didn't happen just because I didn't see it. Something clearly happened, and I'm now wondering how the hell did I miss it."
He must be feeling a lot of guilt for that.
Yes, I think he did. Yeah,
because you can't fail to believe it when it's that many people who are involved. But then people who are quite manipulative and abusive like that are really good at portraying different sides of themselves with different people. Like, I had a situation at work in my first teaching job where I was bullied horrifically, and the guy who was doing it would do it all the time, except when this one man walked in, and he would stop, and he would be like nice to me and compliment me and ask me how I was doing. So to this guy, who was the only one who would have stood up for me, he was so nice, and he would have said that the guy who was bullying me was a good person, that we had a good relationship. And this guy who would have stood up for me had no clue. And then I felt like, because he'd never seen it and all he'd seen was the compliments, if I told this other guy, he wouldn't have believed me. He would have thought I was crazy or like exaggerating, because how could someone who was that nice to me be that awful a person? And I guess with like Josh and Tony, that's the kind of situation that could have been in. That he knows that Tony would have stopped it, or he would have tried to stop it, or he would have spoken out. So he put across this different face when he was in front of him.
No, that's a good point, actually, yeah. Let's end on a high note. Let's find a positive note.
Yeah.
Let's find a positive note.
Yes. So, positives. We've learned some amazing things. I am really proud of who I am. And a big part of who I am is because of all the things I learned from all the things I watched as a teen, and all the way that I explored my own creativity. So I've become a person I'm actually proud of, which I never thought I would be, partly because of all this stuff. And that's not going to change no matter how much we don't like where it came from. So that's my positive.
Well said. I don't think I could say anything better myself. I think we'll end it there. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys on another video soon. You guys take care.